That is so fetch.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen.
Haram!
Hi there. My name is Mike Fluke, and you're watching the Philo Republic podcast. I've just been enjoying Pride this month. And in this episode, I'm going to poke the bear. Not that bear, not the big, angry, scary bear in the South. No, I'm going to poke the other bear. The more cute and cuddly gay bear. In this episode, I'm going to try to explain how complicated gay rights are in the Philippines and why I personally think a federal law might just be a bad idea. And I'm going to explain why I think SOGIE has been tossed around inside the government for the last 25 years. Let's get into it, shall we? We are very scientific here at Philo Republic, and we're going to be using a very simple model to explain why passing SOGIE at a federal level might be a bad idea. Let's take a look, shall we?
All right, today we're going to talk about how we can find out and how much we can find out and what it takes to get there. So first we have to decide how much do we want to find out. So let's say in this case, I want to find out at a level of 7. Okay, so I find that level on my graph and I come horizontally to my gradient line. Where it intersects with my gradient line, I'm going to come straight down to where it intersects with my down line. That there is going to tell me how much I have to around to find out what I need to find out. See, as you can see, the more you around, the more you're going to find out. And also, if you stay down here and you never around, you'll never find out. So I hope this lesson is helpful. Thank you.
So I think this year in particular, the alphabet community has been around more than usual. And maybe they're going to find out, don't know, but I am going to kind of go into this little document that I've already prepared for you. Basically, the Philippines is reaching a tipping point on gay rights, and because the government can't get it together, the alphabet community appears to be oversimplifying the standoff into a culture war between their ideology, Abrahamic values, the values that Christians and Muslims agree on, and rebel group extremism. So the government has an opportunity to take the issue head on so they can lead and create a uniquely Filipino solution, as Western models are not compatible with the complex social fabric of the country. There's already a blueprint to follow that would ensure peace within the country, but if the government doesn't grab the wheel soon, globalist NGO machinations will shame the Marcos regime into adopting a westernized, one-size-fits-all legal framework that would ultimately inflame tensions and antagonize radical forces within the country. And time is running out because of this lovely individual. Just one of them. But it is a culture war. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that the alphabet community is ultimately waging war. The quote in this image here, each of our presences is very important. So my prayer and my wish to each of you, to all of us who are part of this community is, let's all make sure that we are seen. Please be seen. We have to be heard, so please be heard. We need to come out, be seen, and be counted because our numbers are power. And that's Vice Ganda at the Pride event in Quezon City on June 28th this year. So I thought he was a comedian, but yeah, okay, whatever. Without smart government leadership, the umbrella of Christian tolerance only goes so far. Push the envelope and the country may erupt into something more kinetic. A very unpredictable, bloody, chaotic civil war. Again. Been there, bought the book, not interested in doing it again. I lived right near Marawi when that happened. That was fun. That was fun. Not horrible at all. So hell, since Christians in this country seem incapable of standing their ground on the issue, most would sit back and watch Muslims do their groove thing. But I am hoping things do not go that far. If the government can cede its appetite for top-down federal control over the issue, and the alphabet community can proceed thoughtfully, maybe put the brakes on a little bit, they may be able to get their cake and eat it too. For me, the most logical solution would look like the following. Do not make a federal law that enforces gay rights nationwide. Instead, allow for local ordinances that further gay rights if they so choose at a local level. It's kind of like how Trump in the States, I know, like, yeah, why am I bringing up Trump? Well, they're going to import a Western solution into the Philippines ham-fistedly. So I think bringing up another Western solution, isn't out of order. So Trump made abortion rights in America go back down to the states. So individual states could decide how they wanted to handle the issue. It's very democratic. That's kind of what I'm proposing here. If you make gay rights legal in some areas and not in others, then you can respect everybody. So, and there's big reasons for that. So it would look a little bit like, keeping hands off religious institutions and make it opt-in. If some local ordinance allow for civil unions, not marriage. Marriage is a Christian word. That was one of the battles that we lost in the West. Marriage is a Christian thing, but I'm all for civil unions. So if there are local ordinances that allow for civil unions, you could recognize them federally under existing frameworks. But if local ordinances refuse, like those under Sharia law, for instance, because we have those here, you can't ram it down their throat. Because if you do, you're going to around and find out, right? So, and then finally, maybe we can stop forcing the entire country to participate in what the majority deems as degeneracy. I personally don't like being forced to celebrate what people do with their holes, even if it's just an inconvenience of having to wait half an hour at a traffic light as a bunch of people walk on by. And I'll get to what that looks like in just a moment. So the protest is gay. Filipino pride is usually symbolically linked to the Stonewall Uprising in New York City that happened in June 1969. It's a very fitting year. So, and it's something that happened in America. Make it make sense, please. So yeah, it was an event that happened in America where the alphabet people, mostly trans women of color, resisted police harassment at the Stonewall Inn. It has absolutely nothing to do with Filipino history, culture, or persecution, because there's never been a law on the books that criminalizes or persecutes same-sex relations in the Philippines. Not federally. And the Philippines doesn't have the same history that the West does. Like we had centuries of criminalizing gay acts. And that's why Stonewall became a big deal for our gay community. But I just don't see the persecution here. And I think you guys were actually very fortunate. The alphabet community was very fortunate to be able to bypass all of that. They got full support, and I'm going to get into that kind of support shortly, of various institutions. And this is how we're repaid. I can't even drive down the street on my motorcycle on a hot day with a shirt off. This is a very chaste, this is a very, conservative country. There's laws on the books. You can't do that. So if they're all about equality, does that look like equality to you?
Ha! Gay!
And you walk around in your skivvies? And I just think that continually moving forward without addressing the issue legally is like, this is a war. Like they are, how'd that photo get in there? And then this fine lady here thinks that that the country should uphold pride, militant, her story. Uphold pride, militant, her story. Yeah, would she like that? Would she like that? You like that? So, yeah, and they want U.S. troops out now for some reason. These people are delusional. Delulu, as the kids like to say. And passing the SOGIE bill, as I've said, it's a federal bill. So it causes risks. And then this I don't even understand. They're doing the thing. They're doing the thing. So I'm going to do the thing. So yeah, they're colonizing themselves. My people don't even have to do it anymore. They do it to themselves. So let's take a look. The Queers for Palestine thing. I mean, why is that a thing in the Philippines? Anyway, let's take a look what Palestine thinks, you know? And this is an AI generated video. So take it for what it is. But it still proves, you know, because these things do happen.
Let's see what Hamas have to say.
Hamas just doesn't understand us yet. There are actually 72 genders. We're planning a drag show in Rafah.
We are very happy for Queers for Palestine. We prepare rooftop seating, very exclusive. Of course, we respect pronouns, especially in our hostage video. Yes, we're very inclusive here. Even have LGBT flag now. Very big barbecue. We're planning a drag show next month. We drag them to roof. We know judge lifestyle. Only Allah does. We just arrange the meeting with him.
Well, that's no good. So yeah, it's kind of a preview because like the real irony of it and the fact like they're playing themselves. They're really playing themselves because they are poking the bigger angry bear. And I think that this generation has no idea of their own country's history.
Gay!
All right, so now let's take a look at public support. I call it the gay mirage and public sentiment. So at a superficial level, like, oh, that's nice. On that level, most people want the alphabet people to enjoy the same rights as everybody else. Because people are peaceful. People are generally pretty chill. A 2017 ILGA poll found that 63% of Filipinos agree that LGB people, I guess they didn't have the letters back in 2017 for the entire alphabet. They believe that people should enjoy the same rights as straight people and similarly support protection from workplace discrimination. Trans rights were either not recorded or numbers were so small that they didn't register. There's more trans people, more trans, I guess you call them women, trans women in the Philippines per capita than there is in Thailand. So that's interesting. However, when you get into specifics and you actually isolate, okay, what rights should they have? People actually process the question and responses change dramatically. Support for same-sex marriage remains low. Around 16% of the population favored it in a 2015 poll, with approximately 84% of the country vehemently opposed. Only 22% of the population supported same-sex civil unions. In a 2018 Social Weather Stations survey, 61% opposed it. So I guess, I don't know if it's because people noted that they changed the word for marriage to civil unions. Not sure. And anecdotally, every single Facebook post by local news organizations that promote anything related to Pride are ratioed to hell. I wonder why. Oh, breaking news. 1 second, please. Well, that's awful. Moving on. So let's take a look at the percentage. I even used the right colors. Let's take a look at the percentage of gay people in the Philippines versus people that are from Abrahamic religions. 4.8% alphabet people, 95.2% Abrahamic religions. Interesting. So approximately 95% of the Philippine population follows an Abrahamic religion, primarily Christianity and Islam, and all flavors of the alphabet spectrum combined only make up approximately 5%. For this reason alone, pride should probably be a non-issue in the Philippines, but legacy media and politicians keep pushing it forward without reading the f***ing room. It's complicated. So before Spanish occupation, the Philippines was a majority Muslim nation. Yeah. Diplomatic relations between Muslims and the majority have been tense for generations. To keep peace and order, the federal government has strategically made concessions that allow Muslims to self-govern autonomous regions like the BARMM, while peacefully maintaining Sharia law within their regional borders. They do this through public ordinance. If SOGIE were to be signed into federal law, this could undoubtedly cause serious unrest because the country is already a powder keg as it is. Out of 19 rebel groups, half of them are linked to the religion of peace. And that's no joke. I actually, in a previous video, I have it here. Here we go. There's a whole list of wonderful little events that happened due to that whole element. So again, I just think that this generation doesn't understand their history. You can join the members only community and you can get this spreadsheet here of all of the events of fun. And yeah, so it really is no joke, you know. And again, you know, we've had events even recently in recent history. So now let's look at the context of this. So the reason why I keep going on about the federal thing is because a law is passed federally, an ordinance is passed at a local level and is enforced by local police, i.e., there's no smoking in Davao. An ordinance can only exist if it does not directly conflict or contradict a federal law. So if Sharia law is an ordinance and then there's a federal law that says gay marriage is, you know, like discrimination and all that stuff is nationally enforced, then their Sharia law, poof, no more. So that's therein is the meat and potatoes of the argument. So you got to find a way to allow ordinances and, you know, to coexist, because I thought it was all about diversity, right, folks? So in the Philippines, there is no specific federal law that explicitly makes same-sex sexual activity legal or illegal. Same-sex relationships, marriage, child adoption, legal sex changes for transgenders, and alphabet anti-discrimination are not enshrined in a federal law at this time. As a result, current ordinances can make these activities illegal regionally. Again, this was a majority Muslim country. It's a majority Christian country now. So, yeah, you know, like if you're going to make a law like that, it's going to rock the apple cart with everybody, 95% of the country. So, yeah, so let's take a look at what SOGIE is, you know, and maybe some of the points within that law that might cause trouble. It's the Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, and Expression law. It's a proposed federal law that would ultimately render the following ordinances defunct. And I'm going to get to those after this. And it has been stalled in Congress for 25 years, I believe, give or take. I know for sure over a decade, I mean. So they want to make certain rights like public services and goods. Access cannot be denied due to SOGIE. So let's say that you go to, let's use the American example. You know, let's say that you're brave and beautiful trans, and you go into a cake baker, and you say, I want a cake that celebrates my holes. Well, that person needs the right to say, nuh-uh, that is against my religion. I will not make that cake. Because then you're going to get a bunch of these gay people like causing trouble with the business. And then when they do that, then people react, and, you know, bad news bears, folks. So you have to allow people to choose who they do business with, pure and simple. So employment and licensing, no refusal, revocation, or adverse treatment. What if they're applying to be a teacher at a Catholic school? I can foresee a problem. Or what if they really want to, like, you know, rainbow up, you know, the religion of peace, and they want to become a teacher at a school that teaches Islam? and then they're told no. How's that going to go? I mean, you already saw the people that we're dealing with here, right? On both sides. And then education institutions must not discriminate or expel on SOGIE grounds. But again, Catholic schools, right? So healthcare, equal access, and healthcare decision rights via a right to care card. Now, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about as being a good thing that they have public ordinances, because they already do it. Probably should have loaded this already. They already do it. Through an ordinance, San Juan City has a health proxy card, and they passed an ordinance that allows LGBTQ plus couples and their eligible and other eligible individuals the right to make medical decisions for their partner if needed. Through the proxy, it allows them to give consent to provide bedside and nursing care services, give consent to perform or administer emergency medical care and or management, to perform diagnostic and therapeutic procedures, to hook to life-saving devices, such as, but not limited to, a ventilator. Ventilators are no good, folks. If you're on a ventilator, you're done. Give consent to declare do not resuscitate. Give consent to incubate, access medical information and records necessary to make informed decisions regarding their partner's care. So again, there's local ordinances where you can do this. So yeah, anyway. And then law enforcement conduct and public speech and harassment. So protection from vilification, outing, forced profiling. So if they pass that, what if a minister is reading from the Bible and they're talking about Sodom and Gomorrah? Yeah, it's a no-go. Like, it's just, and then no profiling, harassment, or abuse by authorities, obviously, and then there's penalties. You can get up to 6 years in jail if you do it. So can you imagine? Can you imagine going to jail for 6 years just because you're practicing your own damn religion that is a majority in this country? So you're starting to see now it's a little complicated. So, and then also too, I just want to put in a little bit of gender affirming care. If you want to be more likely to have a stroke and have brain fog and all these other issues that go with gender affirming care, they actually have clinics for that as well. I should have had all these loaded up, but yeah, there's clinics, and you can actually do that in Makati. So they already have these clinics. So, so you can do that. You can do that. And then about that other news break that we had, thank goodness, just in time for Pride on June 19th, Gilead announced that they have a twice yearly injection for HIV prevention, and it only costs the paltry $28,218 US per year. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah. So taking a look at the model, Quezon City's doing it. A lot of other cities are doing it. A lot of cities have local ordinances that prohibit some of the elements of same-sex relations and behaviors, and some don't. So as a unique Filipino model, gay rights may be best governed by local ordinance versus federal law, if at all, to extend the duration of peace. At the very least, this would be more democratic and a greater good that is truly inclusive nationally, because it leaves room to respect the values of all groups where they live. So, yep. So we got some anti-alphabet people ordinances in Marawi City. They prohibit men from dressing or presenting as women, including the use of makeup, earrings, and feminine attire. It also bans indecent clothing, such as tube tops and skin-tight jeans that may induce impure thoughts. Totally legit. I have, again, you need a uniquely Filipino solution, right? So it bans cross-dressing and same-sex relationships among Muslims, which includes penalties such as imprisonment. So it's a legal regional ordinance to keep the peace. So if you don't like it, don't go there. And then there's a lack of LGBTQ protections in BARM, and it's not they're not a protected category. And personally, I don't think that they need to be. So, and then there's Sharia law and everything that obviously goes with that. And then there's other areas that have pro-LGBTQ ordinances. And I'm looking at Quezon City. They've got the Gender Fair Ordinance, which is anti-discrimination across public and private sectors. They have district level coordination of LGBTQIA plus programs. They have barangay level enforcement of these rights. They have healthcare proxy for medical decisions, as I just mentioned earlier, and ongoing advocacy, education, and institutional support. So, you know, if part of the country wants to go like the gay way and the other part of the country wants to keep it old school, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Pass a federal law that's going to put everybody into one direction? And that direction is one of less than 5% of the country? Don't think so. So, and then let's just look at other considerations and then I'm done. This is it. This is the last part of the document. And then I'm just going to jump into public support. So right now, the medical infrastructure is an issue. The Philippines has one of the fastest growing HIV epidemics in Asia, and Mpox is currently picking up its pace. Oh, we have another news alert. Wah, wah. I guess they're out of luck on this one. Anyway, let's wrap up this document, shall we? So, yeah, in contrast to these issues that are happening, because, you know, the majority of cases of HIV and Mpox globally and in the Philippines are among gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men. So, you know, maybe that's kind of affecting public sentiment. I don't know. In contrast to those lovely ailments, the Philippine healthcare system is chronically strained, and outbreaks like HIV, Mpox, dengue, and COVID-19, including the consequences of vaccine harm and long COVID, to name a few, all contribute to that pressure. So public hospitals are generally underfunded, especially in rural areas. There's a low doctor-to-patient ratio. There's health worker shortages, especially in infectious disease, critical care, and mental health, because fittingly enough, Filipinos don't want to work in those fields because they're scary and risky and whatnot. You know, but now if you don't do it, you might be a bigot. There's resource shortages. So they, you know, sometimes have shortages of PPE, available ICU beds, treatment backlogs, etc., and frequent hospital overcrowding, especially during outbreaks and rainy season when they're dealing with dengue. So that seems like another big important consideration that the country is taking. So yeah, you know, I guess I'll wrap it up. So I already mentioned Gilead. You know, what better way to show your love than to put $28,000 US into the pocket of a drug company every year? And the Mpox vaccine, I've heard it's no good. It's no good. And yeah, so we've got a lot of public support, you know, and they were, you know, pride festivals all over the country. You know, I'm not going to list them all, but they were everywhere. And they had events like, you know, pride runs and all this stuff like that. They even had business fairs. So there was QueerCon in Quezon City. And, you know, I mean, the gay community is creating a whole new economy, right? So businesses want that gay money, you know? So yeah. And then, I mean, Baguio. And then there was the big one in Quezon City. And I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this one because they had not only a Pride March, they had a Pride Expo, Pride Night, and Pride Villages in, you know, all throughout the city in satellite locations and all that. So you're not being persecuted, folks. You're not being persecuted. You're not. I'm just going to quickly preload these. So this is where we get again into the, you know, around and find out category. Why? You know, there's like an organized path for the Pride Festival, and if you deviate from that, there's going to be a wall of cops there. Why are they doing this? So just to wrap it up, I don't think anybody wants to celebrate what you do with your holes. I just think that's not a thing. In the Philippines, it's a little bit different here. We don't walk around in the street in our underwear. You're not going to get any support that way. You're not going to get any support colonizing yourself with things like gays for Palestine. And it's a slippery slope, I can't get divorced in this country, and you can't get married. I know that might suck. And that's why it would be great if the government took control of the situation and allowed, regional, local ordinances that allow for civil unions. If they just recognize them under the current legal framework, they don't need to make it a nationwide thing that people have to do. So that way areas in Sharia law can still practice Sharia law and they can be respected. And then areas like Quezon City that want to allow these things can. And then you just choose where you want to live. It just makes more sense to me, personally. And I think that's how most of the country views it. As far as medical rights and even insurance companies, one thing that happened in the States that really, it was such a manipulative masterstroke by an insurance company. There was a same-sex partner who passed away, and he had a life insurance policy, and the insurance company refused to pay his same-sex partner the money from the life insurance policy after the first guy passed on. And then the insurance company redirected the anger over it to the church and said, well, the church, and just because they were being greedy, the insurance company was being greedy again. So, you're being manipulated. I really think that the alphabet community needs to understand just how manipulated they are. It's a masterclass in propagandic brainwashing. And I want to wrap up this video with some fine words from Pope Leo. And I pieced together a few different, sentences in one of his first big speeches. And he talks about how language is being manipulated. And by manipulating language, that's usually the death throw for civilization. So I wrap up this video with Pope Leo. My name is Mike Fluke. You've been watching the File Republic podcast. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think Muslims are right about homosexuals? Or do you think maybe a white guy shouldn't be commenting on this topic at all? In either case, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Leave a comment, and consider joining the members only community, because I really just want to do a discussion panel with three fine Filipina ladies. 4 to 5 Filipina ladies, 3 nights a week for 3 hours a pop on a live stream so Western men can engage. I can't do it unless you help a brother out. So consider supporting the channel. There's links in the description. And I guess I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.
Truth cannot be bent to the will of the age. Love cannot be severed from truth, and language cannot be severed from reality without spiritual ruin. Every great crisis of truth is preceded by the corruption of language. In the present hour, a quiet revolution has taken place, not by the sword, but by syllables. These are not profanities in sound, but in intent. Love is love. Marriage equality, my truth, consenting adults, gender identity, assigned at birth, family is fluid, inclusivity, tolerance, affirming, safe space, hate speech, and progress. Each of these terms, when wielded by the spirit of the age, conceals more than it reveals. They are employed to silence conscience, to delegitimize divine law, and to enthrone the self as the final arbiter of morality. Take the phrase, love is love. On the surface, it appeals to unity, harmony, and kindness, but examined through the lens of truth, it is revealed as a dangerous reduction, one that denies love's objective content, its ordering toward the good, and its dependence on truth. For love severed from truth is no longer love, but sentiment. And when tolerance becomes the supreme virtue, truth is banished as intolerance, and the gospel itself is recast as hate. These 13 words are not merely linguistic choices, they are ideological weapons. They form the catechism of a new creed, one that bows not to the cross, but to the self, not to the creator, but to the creature. To accept their misuse is to concede the ground upon which truth must stand. For language shapes thought, and thought shapes action, And when the vocabulary of a civilization falls, its soul is not far behind. There is a grievous error now widely embraced and tragically preached even within the church's own walls, that love, to be genuine, must remain silent before sin, that to challenge error is to hate, and that truth divides while kindness unites. But such reasoning is neither Christian nor charitable. It is a counterfeit compassion, one that denies the soul what it most desperately needs, salvation. True charity is not mere sentiment or softness. It is the will to seek the eternal good of the other, even at the cost of personal comfort, even when it wounds pride or provokes resistance. To love someone is to desire that they live in the truth, walk in the light, and be conformed to Christ,